sequence activated.
Hi guys, Bob here, and you might have seen my TRON video recently where I did a launch pad sequence at the beginning and used it throughout the video, and in this tutorial I'm going to teach you how to do that in Blender 2.8.3. I believe there's newer versions, but that's the one that's installed in my computer at the moment. So we're going to just get straight into it. So this is Blender, for anybody that doesn't know. So down the bottom left you will see the keys and the mouse buttons that I press during this tutorial, so it's there to help you, and I will talk you through some of the keystrokes that don't appear down there, so listen along as well. Initially when you get into Blender there'll be a cube, delete the cube. You'll also probably have a light and a camera you can delete. The light you can leave the camera if you want. The first step is to hit Shift A and get a cylinder. Down the bottom left there's a little menu that pops up and down. We change the vertices to 3 and the cap fill type to nothing. So we're going to rotate the shape round to 90 degrees on the x-axis, and the way we do that is on the keyboard we press R, X, 90, and that gives us this at 90 degrees. So we're now currently in object mode, and we can change into edit mode by hitting tab. Shift A is how we add in objects, G is for grab. We hit Z to go in the Z axis and we move our mouse down below the tunnel, and then we can hit S to scale, and you can scale it to the size that you want it to be. You can enter a number in the number pad, etc. If you hold the middle mouse button down it will zoom around. Now I'm adding a modifier, it's on the wee panel to the right, and it's solidify, and then I'm going to change the thickness to a size that I want it to be. Apply, and that's us got our start of our tunnel. Hit tab to go into edit mode, and I'm going to select by using the faces button up the top left. I'm going to select the faces and the inside. At this point I found that the scale of my tunnel wasn't big enough and I had to scale it up, and I did that by hitting the S, clicking the object, hitting S, and then I can scale up. So I'm just scaling the plane up. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to put it below the object again. Now I'm going to click the two sides, and when I've clicked the two sides I'm going to subdivide them. To do that I right click to get them out the menu up. I'm holding shift down to select each of the surfaces, right clicking and undo inset at that point. Now you can go up to the top left, or you can go to the left hand panel where you can get the inset button as well. So I'm going to choose these two and the two on the other side as well, and I'm going to inset them again, and this will form our lights area. So now we've got our little lights, or where our lights will be, and here's a bit of a kind of difficult bit. So you hit E and then S to get that to do uniform scaling at both sides. I'm now selecting all of the floor, and I'm going to put some lights in my floor area. So I'm selecting these 6 panels, and I'm going to, that's me doing the wrong button there, and now I'm going to extrude them to the ground, selecting my 2 lights, and now we're going to make them glow. The scaling of the screen here on my OBS doesn't show the materials tab properly, and there is a menu to the side of that with a plus and a minus on it. You should be able to see that. This is just due to the way I record my artwork, and I didn't change the size when I started recording this tutorial, so apologies for that, but I'll fix that the next time. So we're going to add the material to the lights. So we come over to the right hand side with this little red world, we hit new, we go down and we change to metallic. We then need to add another material using the little plus sign. We hit new and we go down and we change this to an emission shader first before we change the colour. I did it a few times where I changed the colour first and then had to go back and re-change the colour, because when you change it to emission the colour resets to white. So we're going to change it to a blue colour for the lights. I'm going to change the strength up to 50 in this case. So we hit a sign. Up the top right there is a little button to the right hand side, and we need to make sure we're using the EEVEE renderer, which is inside the render tab. It looks like the back of a digital camera, a big DSLR camera. So in there as well You will see under the render tab, you will see ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space reflections. We need all of those ticked. So we get down to the materials properties, and we can see, and we've obviously got a nice glow effect, and we can change the strength of that. It looks like the lights are coming on and off. You can actually animate that in the timeline, similar to how we do the camera later on in this tutorial. So I'm going to do the floor lights now. Same idea, add a material that's metallic. You'll see me add that in, and then add another material which has an emission shader attached to it. So we assign these, make sure you hit assign on the emission material, because otherwise it won't show up or it will apply to the entire object. So I'm just going to go in and change my colour to a kind of red colour, pink colour. I think I changed it to red later on. And then we're going to turn up the strength. We hit assign, and as you can see straight away, when we've got that tab at the top right clicked, then we can actually see this in real time. We don't have to render it, it's great. The EEVEE engine is an amazing engine. So it looks pretty cool so far, and now we are going to try and just kind of touch up a few things before we set up the camera. I'm going to change the plane to a black colour, and I'm going to change the colour of my tunnel slightly darker as well. So it now looks black, everything's kind of black colour in Blender. And we've got our tunnel, and as you can see I've changed the lights to red. So I'm going to scale up the plane to a larger size just to make this scene work better. Now what you can do is when you hit S, you can actually put in a number in the keypad, just put like 50, and it should totally bring that up to a huge size. Now I'm going to duplicate, and when I duplicate I hit Shift D, and then I can move that by hitting grab and then X, Y or Z depending on what direction I want to move the tunnel in. So I've done that a few times. I've made 4 parts to this tunnel, and now it's time to start animating it. So I add a camera, Shift A to add a camera. Make sure that nothing's selected when you do that, otherwise it will give you some strange menus. And if you hit numpad 0, you will get into the camera, and you can move it around. You can hit grab as long as it's got an orange outline to it. And as you can see, we've got a pretty cool scene here just as EEVEE shows it. Now I'm going to change the camera's position, which is done inside the little orange icon, which is called object properties. I've changed back to a wireframe or a shaded frame so that you can actually see what I am doing. So it makes it easier to find your camera. Doesn't look as cool, but when you're modelling, not everything needs to look cool until the final render. So now I'm moving the camera into position. I can use the object positions on the location X, Y, Z and the rotations to set that, or I can just try and grab it. I tend to use the little panel as I'm doing just now because it makes locating it easier. So once we've got our camera set to where we want it to be, we can go to the timeline and make sure we're in frame 1. Make sure the camera is selected, the orange outline shows me that. On the object properties tab, we set the location, which we've already done, but we hover over those, and to the right of those boxes there's a little diamond triangle. That's how you set a keyframe, and I've just done it for the XYZ and for the rotation. Now I'm moving the slider along to frame 120, and I'm going to move the camera to where I want it to be. So I zoom it along the tunnel to where I want it to be, and then if I want to make that a keyframe, I just hit that little diamond again, which you'll see me do in a minute. Again, you can type in the value that you want, hit the little diamond, and it will make another keyframe for only the one that you've actually clicked. So I've went through them all again to make sure that I don't affect any of the locations or the rotations, and I've just hit the wee diamond next to all of them. Okay, so we're at the render point. There's this render menu, and there's also a render tab which looks like a little printer. When we're in the render tab, there's quite a lot that you can do here, and it's mostly self-explanatory: resolution, aspect ratio, frame that it starts on and ends on. Okay, so you can set the frame down above the timeline as I'm showing you here. I've set it to 120, 130, and then you change the output folder. I'm doing this off screen because I didn't want to go through my whole folder structure, but you'll see that changes to a path that says D drive Adobe Videos So I changed the file format to AVI JPEG. It's the one that I use. It gives me an MP4 file out, which is easy to use, and I pull into Adobe Premiere, which is what I use. I'm then going to go to the Scene tab, and I'm changing my background to black. We now have a black background, everything's looking correct. The camera will run through the tunnel, and we're ready to kind of get ready to render. We're getting ready to render. It sounds like a song. Then we can render, and we go to render animation, and the animation will start to render off screen. In my case, I've dragged in the file so that you can see it, and this gives you a preview of what the render will look like. There's frames up the top left hand side which shows you the progress, and we're going to go up to about 130 frames for this particular sequence. To loop it, all you have to do is get it into your editing software, find where the light disappears at the end of the tunnel, cut it at that point, and then find the next light that disappears and cut it again. Now you'll need to make your tunnel longer, as I did in the beginning sequence, but you can just duplicate your tunnel multiple times and use all the camera sequence to eventually get your loop animation. Thanks so much for watching, and if you want to see my TRON video, it's up in the top corner, and please remember to like, subscribe and hit the wee bell notification. Cheers guys, and EEVEE is out.